Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another meta breakdown video. In today's video, we're going over the PPG event that happened over the course of the weekend in Florida. Another one of the Pro Play Tour qualifiers. Big shout out to PPG because they actually personally got me the information for this event. That's actually not something that happens all the time, believe it or not. A lot of times it's actually really hard to get this info, but a shout out to them for making it really easy for me to get this stuff and get it out to you guys. Also, shout out to them for keeping events going up even during these super trying times. It's awesome to see the tournaments still going on, whether they're IRL or online. They're all great. They're all awesome. Participate in whichever ones you feel comfortable in participating in. No matter what, let's keep Dragon Ball going. But that being said, guys, if you are new here, before we get into the video, definitely subscribe, hit that bell to miss a video. If you want to help the channel out, if you want to try and start competing in some of these tournaments, go check out the Patreon. I promise you I'll have you looking at the game in a different way, in a more competitive light, help improve your game. That being said, let's just get started. So we're doing something a little bit different here that we don't normally do. So we're actually going to look at the deck lists in today's video. We're not going to go into super deep, 10-minute deck profiles on everyone's lists. That's not what we're going to do. But since this information was directly handed to me, we don't always have the deck lists at our disposal, and this is a smaller tournament. So if it's like a top 16, going over the deck list would be a really big process. But since it's one tournament, top 8, it was about 30 or so players. We'll go over it. This is in descending order. So this is the first place list. First place Dark Broly. Again, pretty cool. You guys can see the deck list right up here on the screen as we go through it. So Dark Broly winning this event, man, so crazy. 3 Dark Brolys in this top 8. It's such a cool thing to see because keep in mind, when you go to a Florida event, at least the past like set or two, you got to 110% expect to see a ton of Vegex at these tournaments. But I guess Dark Broly is like in that same realm, right? Like, we know the PPG guys, the FOE guys, they're big on Vegex. Dark Broly is very much within that same realm. It's another black aggro deck, but this deck spams a lot more battle cards, or not a lot more battle cards, a lot bigger battle cards, but it does take more setup and a little bit more doing, I would say. It's definitely a harder deck to pilot than Vegex because Vegex just kind of says, hey, you milled good cards, put them into play. Dark Broly, there's a lot more like managing your drop area there. There is a lot more sequencing there, so it is a little bit harder to play, but it can be more rewarding if you make the proper sequencing, get bigger battle cards into play, put a lot more pressure on the opponent. You drop super big beaters. I'm a big fan of this deck. You guys know that if you've been listening to my meta breakdowns over the last few weeks. I definitely slotted this in as more of a rogue deck, and it's not really fair to say that, like, a 30-person tournament is going to determine the meta, right? Like, this is a pretty small sample size when you're trying to evaluate what the best decks in the meta are. So it's not quite fair to say Dark Broly is the best deck or is the best aggro deck, even though it took so many spots in this top cut, because it is a little bit smaller of a tournament and we haven't seen these kind of Dark Broly outputs with other tournaments, so you can't quite say it's the best, but you can 110% say it's one of the best rogue aggro decks if you're not quite willing to say it's in the top of the meta yet. But regardless, I think it's an amazing deck to play this format if you want something a little bit challenging but want something that rewards you for making the right and the best decisions. So we'll take a quick gander through the list, see if there's anything that's kind of unusual here. So our 1-drop Brolys, we have our typical Dark Brolys in this list. Looks like the extra cards are a pretty standard lineup of 3 Power Burst, 2 Protector. Honestly, this is me personally here, I don't know if Power Burst is super essential in Dark Broly. It is nice that it is a sparking negate, but a lot of times you'll remove your drop area to play your battle cards, so you won't always have that sparking. Yes, grabbing Broly Savage Rush is really good, but that's where that other 1-drop Toa comes into play. Not the union of magic and science. Toa Dark Aura Deluge. You put her on the board for 1 energy, and over the course of the game, she can pick up your 1-drop Broly or any 30k you want, just over and over again, which is absolutely incredible. This list actually also mained Dark Power Black Mass Sand, which is quite interesting. The thing with Dark Broly is it's a little bit weird to stockpile a decks with cards that aren't 30ks. Like, there are plenty of good cards you should play that aren't 30ks, don't get me wrong, but I think you want to be in around like the 35-ish range of 30ks in your deck, just to make sure that your Unawakened Leader is most consistent. Dark Power Black Mass Sand is a very interesting tech card. It's got good matchups across the board, of course. I mean, there's like Red Broly, it's pretty solid against if they don't open the Piccolo Junior Giant Force. Sen Shenron's another good matchup for the card, but it's a little bit weird because you already have a great Sin Shenron matchup since you can remove the Dragon Ball from the drop area. It is also really good against Obuni decks, and maybe that's one of the things that this Dark Broly player was a little bit more scared of, because blue defensive decks can be a little bit tough for Dark Broly. You know, just like Floodgate negate after Floodgate negate, and then Baby Hatch to like, totally stop your turn. So that makes a lot of sense there, where you're taking a lot of pressure from Obuni, and you have another card to rely on that necessarily isn't Protector of the People. In the side deck here, very cool, he's playing the Great Devilman cards. As far as I remember, they're not that amazing. One's a counter attack, one's a counter play, if I recall correctly. Maybe there's a certain scenario where that's really good. If you have an idea about that, leave it in the comments down below. What I really like in the side deck though is Bardock the Tenacious and Sun Gohan Changing History, particularly the Sun Gohan. That's the draft box 6 silver bullet that basically says if your opponent uses a counter card or counter attack or counter card, I think counter card period, to untap an energy during your turn, they're going to burn an energy and burn a life. So I've mentioned before, those are going to be best slotted in aggro decks, and Dark Broly is a perfect example of a deck that you should be playing these silver bullets in, because you hit fast, you hit hard, and even if you spend energy on a one drop like this, you have other follow-up aggro plays, aka your Overwhelms and your Dark Broly plays. So that type of card, as much as I wish they weren't printed, they're amazing in an aggro deck like Dark Broly. So this list looks very well constructed. I like it a lot. Next up, guys, we have Clash of Fates Goku. So kind of diverging away from like Majin Vegeta and Green Gotenks, which are both in this top 8. This is a deck where you just play the best green cards you can play, but besides that, you're also just playing green cards that kind of assist you in the meta, right? Like sometimes the Piccolo from Draft Box 4 assimilated ability is really good, sometimes it's not so good. So you just have like random things like that where you can kind of manipulate your deck building to adjust to a format. And don't get me wrong, there might be some niches in a format that, you know, no card in green will fulfill, and that is where you can kind of run into a problem. But it's just a cool deck building change up when you compare it to something like Majin Vegeta or Green Gotenks that pretty much build themselves, don't have too much flexibility. Like maybe in those decks you have maybe like room for 10 or 15 non-engine, non-archetype cards. But anyways, quick run through the list. One Fu Shrouded just at the top end there. Grade 8 Mass Sand, that was the secret rare it looks like that we're playing here. Then we have Kutsubishi Maiden, one of the best cards in green. 2 energy, snipe anything to that's attacking. Or that's not attacking, rather. Defensive Stance Vegeta, Sparking Super Combo, 2-2 split though, Defending Father Paragus and Defensive Stance Vegeta. So certain scenarios where you just want to like defend early, you know, not take a ton of hits for like early crits or early big damage. And then of course Defending Father Paragus is one of the best super combos in the game. It's really like that first wave of these draw 2 super combos we've gotten for monocolor decks, but you know, all it requires is a green leader. It doesn't require any monocolor energy. What's really cool is actually playing Final Showdown Goku and some Krillins to get that into play. I mean, even though it's a really old engine, as long as the Krillins are somewhat playable, it's really not that bad, because if you think about it, the Final Showdown Goku is a 5-drop 25k double striker. He kills anything ignoring barriers, so that's just really solid on his own. Just that barrier removal is really good. So really cool to see Clash Goku. I always love to see it. And then third place, Dark Broly, another Dark Broly list, of course. Like I said, 3 were in this top 8. Let's see if there's anything else in this list that you know, kind of stands out from the others. So Demon God Demigra, in my opinion, one of the best cards in this deck from my testing at least. And I'm not that's like a standout card. You probably should be playing this if you want to play Dark Broly at the most competitive level. A little bit expensive, which is kind of unfortunate, but it's still just such a good card. Like if you go first on turn 2, play that guy, there is such a low number of decks that can counter that or remove that on their second or third turn. It's just going to accrue value over time. It's super good. And main deck Secret Identity Mass Sand adds a 2 of here, just something that caught my eye really quickly. Very interesting, because in Dark Broly you have very easy access to removal, like one of your Dark Brolys, which is easily playable from the deck, or you know, playable from your drop area. Although it's not wide removal, so I guess maybe the Secret Identity Mass Sand's probably teched in there specifically for things like Obuni decks and token decks, or just, you know, rush decks that may give Dark Broly a rough time if you don't see your Protector of the People. This deck's doing a 3-3 split, Power Burst, Protector of the People, which is a very interesting split there. I kind of just think 4 Protector might be all you need. Again, Power Burst is nice because it is sparking, does pick up your 1-drop Brolys and your 1-drop Toas if you need them, but I'm just not quite sure you need it. That's my opinion anyway. So moving along here, we do have a Majin Vegeta here. I was talking about it before, talking about Clash Goku. This is much more of a deck where, you know, it sort of builds itself, but we know what this deck does at this point, right? This deck is one of the top rogue aggro decks, right? That's pretty much indisputable. And if you look at the top meta aggro decks, of course we have Red Broly, Vegex, and Reboot Gohan, right? It's just that Majin Vegeta takes a little bit more setup, takes a little bit more doing, and it's honestly not so much within the budget range that the other decks are, particularly Vegex and Reboot Gohan. I think, you know, Red Broly blows this deck out of the water in terms of cost just because of the astonishing potential Brolys. But this deck is also pretty much needs its promo from the tournament packs, but I think they're about $40 to $60 at the time of recording, just off the top of my head, if I'm recalling correctly. But regardless, it's a good deck, of course. It's an aggro deck that's backed up by Dormant Potential Unleashed, which is actually quite cool. Like, Red Broly is the only deck that has a similar type of protection, and I guess you can play in Reboot Gohan, but a lot of times people just completely forego the Unison Reboot Gohan. Occasionally they'll play the Demigod Unison, but a lot of times they won't even play it. They'll just play all gas. But in this deck, for instance, you do have the ability to play Dormant Potential pretty reliantly because you do want to get a Unison out as early as you possibly can. Demigod, and then possibly later in the game, you're going to be playing the Dark Broly Unison. But that might be even more like a side deck card at this point, because Dark Broly Unison, while it is really, really good, it's probably just a better side deck card more than anything. Like, it's actually an amazing side deck card against a deck like Gotenks that wants to remove markers from your Unison. They actually get punished for doing that. But in a regular Majin Vegeta deck where you're just trying to kill someone by turn 2, turn 3, casting that for 3 is probably pretty costly. So just wanted to keep that and throw that out there. Next up, we do have a Gotenks here in the top 8. Probably not going to be too much here that is too crazy. There is Dr. Gero's super combo, Progenitor of Terror. That's pretty cool. You can dump your Zarbon blockers into the drop area, dump your Rebrands, and dump your Saiyan Instincts. So that's always going to be pretty cool. What's actually nice here is I'm actually seeing the Brimming with Talent Goten card. I don't know if the Trunks is being played a lot right now, but the Brimming with Talent Goten card, the one from the tournament pack, you know, there was a lot of cards in the tournament pack, unfortunately, that were just not very good. But Sun Goten Brimming with Power is a card that people are starting to play because it's just basically a 1 energy, pick it up from the drop area, so it gets you back fusion material. It's almost like a mana sink Saiyan Instincts. It's not like as powerful as a tap 2 draw 2, but it is a pay 1 get a 5k combo back, so that's generally always pretty solid. What's really cool here actually is this deck is playing Trunks, Protector of the Children. That's a set 1 super combo. It's actually really, really funny. So a 2-2 split between Dr. Gero and Trunks. The Trunks, you know, being searchable in the deck is obviously quite good, even though it's a 0 cost combo. The only reason that's going to matter is if you're playing against a Fu Shrouded in Mystery that's basically turning off your super combo effects. But in 99% of other scenarios, that card is a searchable super combo, so it's always cool to see. And if you get to play the winner stamps, man, I'm never going to complain about that. All right, next up, Serge Roli. All right, this deck list is pretty much illegible, and it doesn't even have the full card names, so I'm not even going to try and pretend to know what this list played. If you guys want to pause the video, try and parse some stuff out here, be my guest. But just talking about Surge leaders in general, they're definitely in a rough spot. I mean, of course, we had the ultimate erratas of Surge Goku and Surge Piccolo, 2 of the strongest Surge leaders to ever, you know, grace the game, if you will. But Serge Roli is definitely that 3rd best, now probably the number 1 best Surge leader, you know, when you're just considering Goku and Piccolo at their full power. So Serge Roli, it's got an effect that actually really reminds me a lot of Launch coming out in set 12, so there might be some similarities there, and people are saying in Launch you could try out red green or red blue, some sort of multicolor engine there. But Red Roli, basically when you combo, you draw cards, so you get some value there. Combo the cheat sheet that says when you have 2 red greens in your energy, draw an additional card. That's always pretty solid there. Backside though, really good. I mean, removing a battle card Nori barrier is always a solid effect, and then going in with the leader, giving it double strike, always for some big game-ending power. Comboing a super combo out of the drop, for instance. One play, which I don't know if this deck is necessarily doing, you're able to combo the Godstrike Beerus, that's the name of it, Godstrike Beerus out of the drop area to negate skills using your leader's ultimate. It's always a really cool, cheesy play. So again, this deck list is pretty much illegible, but if it was playing that card in this deck, that's a pretty cool tech, just in my opinion. Next up, guys, we do have a Vegex here. It's so nice to not have Vegex win a tournament for once. I mean, this is probably just an outlier tournament. I don't think that you know, Dark Broly is necessarily more consistent or better than Vegex. It's hard to say that. Dark Broly does take more setup, as where Vegex plays guys for free as well, but takes very little setup. So it is like a weird comparison there, but it's just so nice to see that Vegex did not win a tournament this weekend. We're going to have to see what goes on in set 12, because I'm assuming this leader is going to get some sort of touch on the ban list. It's 4th touch on a ban list if that does happen. So we're gonna have to wait and see what happens in set 12, but it looks like this deck's just gonna get stronger and stronger with the new Black Saiyan support coming out in set 12. And then finally, guys, rounding it off, one more Dark Broly. Very, very cool stuff here. This list actually quite interesting because it's main decking 3 copies of Majin Buu Human Extinction Attack It's a card that's definitely not bad in Dark Broly because it gets you more cards into your drop. Combo's big, although you might necessarily not need to combo big because of the fact your guys already hit for big numbers. But it does cost 1 energy, and in an aggro deck that wants to win by turn 3, turn 4 the latest, and your Awaken doesn't untap, you just draw 2. That card costing energy for me has always been a little bit problematic. It's the same thing with Furthering Instruction Champa. Like, not all Dark Broly lists play Furthering Instruction Champa. Because it costs 1, it actually doesn't really fit into your curve very, very well. But regardless, congratulations to all these players. Very cool to see a deck list. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys got some ideas out of these lists. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.